Welcome back to episode 2 of the Arc Theory podcast. We are Jeremiah and Danielle, your hosts, and we're so happy you're here.
Yeah, we're excited to get into the second episode. This episode
Mm-hmm.
took a little bit longer than we originally anticipated to
Yep.
get out because life has been
Yeah.
interesting lately. But
Yeah.
I think that's part of what we want to talk about today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. We were originally planning on talking about identity for episode 2, but I feel like we had it recorded, it was ready to go, we were praying over it, and there was just something about it that, we just didn't feel right about. And it just, didn't seem like genuine
right,
enough to where we were at. And I feel like one thing that the Lord has just really been reminding us with this podcast is vulnerability, transparency. Like you have to show yourselves, you have to show people where you're truly at. And I feel like with that episode, it was like it was genuine to where we were at, but it was still kind of coming from almost like a teaching place
right.
that it's like, here's how you find your identity in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that stuff is Googleable, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so it's obviously, we all know you find your identity in Christ by reading the word. You read the word and you get to know more of who the Lord is. And once you learn more about who the Lord is, you start learning more about yourself.
Right.
And that is how you find your identity. And it starts shaping how you do things, how you
Mm-hmm.
think, how you operate. And that's where that transformation happens.
Right.
And that's how you find your identity. But I feel like with that episode, it was just almost like a lot of things that we heard about identity
Mm-hmm.
that sounded really good
Yeah.
put into one, and it's like, sweet, that's all right,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, where are we though on that journey?
Right. Yeah, because I feel like part of it has been, and I think both of us have that background of wanting to teach and
Yeah.
wanting to be, honestly, just to add value.
Yeah.
And I think so we both come from the standpoint of like, nobody's going to care what we have to say. So
Yeah.
let's try to teach something and let's try to create a podcast that's going to be full of good information that
Yeah.
people can take away and learn
Yeah.
something. And I think I would say that we accomplished that in that episode, but it was
Yeah.
kind of like you said, we just didn't feel super confident about releasing that episode at this point. And
Yeah.
I think in the future that episode
Yeah.
will come out because I think it was a good episode and there
Yeah.
was useful information in that, but I think the Lord has really been putting it on both of us to just be vulnerable and talk about
Yeah.
where we're at, and not because we're anything special, but
Yeah.
because I think it can help inspire people that are on a similar journey
Mhm.
that want to do something similar. And obviously, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to look like this. And I'm not even talking about starting a podcast,
Yeah.
but couples that are doing stuff together, running hand in hand together,
Mhm.
and navigating life and living in the tension of trying to follow the will of God, but
Yeah.
not knowing exactly how to do that and how to do
Yeah.
that the right way and what that really looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that we've just been kind of given this gift to be vulnerable and
Yeah.
to use what we've learned and what we're
Yeah.
going through as a testimony to help other people to be able to ideally do the same
Yeah.
thing, or at least have the encouragement to go like, okay, like I'm not the only crazy person out here that's trying
Right.
to do the
Right.
Lord's work.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I feel like that last episode, it had a lot of value to add,
Right.
but I think it was just not the value that the Lord necessarily wanted us to add.
Right.
All that information is all out there. You can have that. But our specific journey, our specific story is not researchable,
Right.
that's only gonna add value if we share it.
Right.
And so I feel like that is the value the Lord wants us to add. And so yeah, like you said, we'll eventually release an episode about that. But I think what we just really want this podcast to be is almost like documentation of what we're currently going through,
Mhm.
you know? And sure, maybe we'll be teaching some stuff along the way or whatever, but more of just real time. this
Yeah.
week. Like, what are we facing? What are our like struggles? How are we feeling? Like, things like that, I think is more of like what the Lord is wanting us to share.
Right.
And so, kind of just like even thinking about this week, what we've been currently praying about is like having a word of the year for next year.
Mhm.
And well, I guess this year, but last year, whatever,
2023.
2023, the word was rooted. And
Yeah.
man, did the Lord root us. Like we wanted to be like more rooted in our marriage, in our parenting, in our faith, in every aspect of our life. And
Mhm.
I feel like because we chose that word, we allowed the Lord to be moving in our life
Mhm.
to make that happen. And yeah, like that, it's still a crazy journey, but like,
Yeah.
did we come out more rooted? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Through like all of the trials and everything that we've gone through this year, it's crazy, but like we're more rooted. And
Mhm.
I feel like it's because we like set that intention in the beginning of the year, and like moving into a new year, I feel like we totally understand like the power of having a word going
Mhm.
into the new year.
Yeah, and I feel like in the past, like, I always kinda thought that was, like, a little bit corny because
Yeah, yeah,
it goes along with those New Year's resolutions that people
right. Never
break
stick
after
to.
a week and, you have all these high expectations, but I
Yeah,
do think with this, it is exactly what you said, it's we felt like that was the word, and then
yeah.
because we agreed on it together,
Mhm.
we acted in a way that was gonna allow God to do
Yeah,
the work that he needed to do.
yeah,
Because obviously God can do whatever he wants and he can
yeah.
make things happen, but I also think that there's a responsibility from us
Mhm,
as people taking part in that partnership to
mhm.
be willing to allow God to do the work that
Yeah,
he's trying to do.
yeah.
And so,
That's where the magic happens.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that this year was a huge testament to that.
yeah.
It was like we let ourselves go, and
Mhm.
so that we
Physically.
physically, mentally, it was a
It's rough.
these pounds have been adding up. But I think we really just allowed God to be able to move the way that he
Yeah,
wanted to, and I think that
yeah,
because we did that, it wasn't that we got rooted because of any, like, one particular thing, it was God was
yeah,
using so many different things to kinda shape
yeah.
us and presenting challenges and opportunities for us
Right.
to get more rooted,
Yeah.
and I think that's, like, a big thing that people miss out on, it's
Mhm.
like, people will say the thing, "I wanna be more rooted,"
Yeah.
but do you wanna go through what it takes to actually
Yep.
plant your roots? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times that journey is
Yeah.
easier said than done
Yeah.
because when you're getting rooted, it's a lot of God shaving off a lot of things that you
Mhm.
thought you needed.
Mhm.
It's a lot of darkness and Him putting
Mhm.
you underneath the soil and you
Yeah.
wondering what's going on and how
Yeah.
you're going to navigate this next season and what it's going
Yeah.
to look like and just building that trust and that reliance and that
Mhm.
dependence on God
Mhm.
so that when bigger challenges are faced, your roots are deep enough to not knock you out.
Yeah.
And I feel like before there was things like I feel like if we went through this year 4 years ago, like it would have destroyed us.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were joking about it today in the car that people always say, "You'll laugh about this one day." But
Mhm.
we've been laughing the whole time because I feel like we're at
Yeah.
such a point where when things start to happen, we're like, "Okay, well, we kind of asked for this." In a
Yeah.
sense, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not like we wanted this to happen,
Mhm.
but because God has been moving and shifting so many things that we're not so surprised by it,
Mhm.
and we're just looking at it from the perspective of, "Okay, this is just an opportunity for us to get more rooted."
Yeah.
And we're choosing
Yeah.
to look at it from that perspective as
Yeah.
opposed to why is this happening to me and why am I getting affected by
Yeah.
this and why isn't God moving in the timeline that I want?
Yeah.
Because obviously we want all of those things to happen. I would love it if he just dropped millions of dollars into our bank account and set us up
Yeah.
for, the next 10 years. But I think because he doesn't operate like
Yeah.
that, we're having to live in that tension and that space of saying like, okay, I trust you and
Yeah.
here's my best attempt at showing that.
Mhm. So, I feel like moving into like kind of our word of the year, Yeah, we've kind of just like been praying about it a lot, especially this week. And um, I feel like I feel like the word that I got was courage. And I didn't even tell you about this
Mhm.
because I don't want that word to be the word of the year.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with the word being rooted, it's like, whoa, you're going to be facing some obstacles
Right.
to allow you to get more rooted. So if the word is courage, then you're going to be faced with opportunities to have to be courageous.
Mhm.
That probably means doing things that are uncomfortable and things that you don't want to do. So hard pass on that. And I'll choose a different word
Yeah.
like
Prosperity or
prosperity,
wealth and health
wealth,
and stealth.
and stuff. Exactly. And so I feel like, yeah, I was hearing that word this week, and like literally every single time I'm like, no, I'll just keep praying. That can't be from the Lord, from the
Mhm.
Lord. And so, yeah, didn't even tell you about it because I didn't want you to start thinking about it. And
Or agree.
yeah, and then I feel like it was so crazy today. Like we met with a friend. You can talk about it if you want to
Mm.
talk about it.
I don't care either way.
You can
But
talk about it. I feel like I
so we had some of our like really good friends that are full-time missionaries that are in town, and they came over today for coffee
Mhm.
to hang out, kind of update us on what they've been doing and what they've been up to. And they are like prayer people. And so
You
that
know those?
you know
Yeah.
those type, those annoying people. I'm just kidding. They came over and they were talking to us, and they're starting a new ministry of their own, and they were
Yeah.
talking about some of their company values and trying to get a list of company values that they wanted to instill into their ministry moving forward and set
Yeah.
it up on like a solid foundation. And
Mhm.
so they listed a handful of words, and then one of the words that they landed on was, and this, we didn't tell them about our word or even that we
Yeah.
were trying to pick a word.
Mhm.
um, and they started talking about what their company values are going to stand on, and the word that they kept getting hung up on was courage,
Mhm.
which was so funny because
Yeah.
she's sitting there, like, kind of laughing, and I still, at this point, didn't know
Yeah.
that you were thinking that was gonna be the word, and
Mhm.
so I'm kinda looking at you, like, waiting to hear, like, what funny
Mhm.
thing is attached to that, and so they continued with their kinda definition of
Yeah.
courage, and I think originally they were saying, like, the idea, like, people think of, like, acting in the face of fear
Yeah.
is courage, but they were saying, like, that just didn't sit right with
Yeah.
their new ministry and kinda where they were headed, and
Mhm.
so they were praying about like what about courage is it that they're like trying to instill into their ministry? And basically the definition that they came up with was talking about how they need to be courageous to step into the truth that God has and
Mhm.
to be willing to speak God's truth in
Mhm.
boldness and in love the way Jesus did, that Jesus was not afraid to stand up for what he believed in and to
Mhm.
confront the truth and to be able to present the truth, and
Mhm.
despite where he was at, who he was with. And
Yeah.
I think that definition, to speak truth in boldness and
Mhm.
love as the definition for courage,
Mhm.
was like exactly what we
Yeah.
needed to hear, because she then shared, or go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, and then I feel like as she was just saying that, I was just like, okay, Lord, got it. Like this is our word. And um I think it just made me think so much about this podcast and like
Hmm.
what the Lord is calling us to do with this, and like and he's called us to like speak truth over different topics like marriage, um, building a kingdom business, like marriage itself, like society has such like a warped idea of what marriage is supposed to be. And like so going back to like what the Lord says about marriage and like, talking about that and like showing what that looks like to be like living that out or whatever. And then even like building a business, like building a business the Lord's way is completely different than building a business the world's way.
Hmm.
And God's kingdom is like completely upside down. So a lot of times when the Lord is asking us to do something when you're building like in your business, it makes no sense to like to the world. And that is the stuff that like we want to be talking about
Mhm.
on this podcast, and to be like speaking these truths that are coming from him,
Mhm.
not our truths, they're his truths.
Mhm.
And like talking about that, I'm just like, yeah, like this podcast like needs courage.
Mhm.
And nothing like to say about like us or
Mhm.
whatever, but it's like all of this is just to spread spread the Lord's truth, spread the
Mhm.
truth. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was our word. Honestly, we were really encouraged like anybody to just get like to be prayerful about getting a word of the year.
Mhm.
And um yeah, it just puts your like heart in a posture to receive or work on or whatever that word is, like sets the intention. It's really helpful and it
Mhm.
helps you move in alignment with that.
Mhm.
And it's the coolest thing when you get to the end of the year and you just see all that the Lord has done
Mhm.
with that.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah. Are
No,
you-
I was gonna say, yeah, if you get the word, like, write it down and really
Yeah.
pray on it, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of times, like she said, like, we want a different word
Yeah.
a lot of times. Like,
Yeah.
the initial word that you get, especially if it really is well, at least we believe, like, from God, it's
Something
gonna be
scares you.
something that's probably uncomfortable and
Yeah.
probably something that you're not anticipating, and it
Mhm.
might make, at this point at least, 0 sense, and
Yeah.
then in a couple months, you're gonna be like, "Wow, that was exactly what I
Yeah.
needed, and I didn't even realize it."
Yeah.
And I think that's kinda what it was for us for being rooted, because I think
Yeah.
we both this year had an like, somewhat of an idea, like, we're pretty rooted,
Yeah.
like, we go to
Yeah.
church on Sundays, we do the Christian thing,
Yeah.
and, our
Mhm.
faith isn't gonna be, affected by anything,
Mhm.
and then reality starts to set in and new challenges and new
Mhm.
seasons of life set in and
Yeah,
your
that really
second
test
kid,
you.
your
Yeah.
business, and all these different things that are happening. And it was so much of that word.
Yeah.
Like, we relied on that so much to get us through
Yeah.
these, like, times, and it really helped shape our perspective, and if we would've taken that word and thought, "Oh, that's stupid, that's not gonna be
Mhm.
us, we don't need it," thrown it
Mhm.
away and not thought about it, when we
Yeah.
ran into those times, like, I don't think we would've had some of the same faith to stick it out or to
Yeah.
trust or to know that, God's gonna take care of it,
Mhm.
and so, I would just encourage anybody,
Mhm.
write it down, pray about it, think about it. If you
Yeah.
don't get it by January 1st,
Yeah.
it's okay. I think
Yeah.
we didn't pick our word until February of last year anyways.
Yeah.
Like, it was yeah,
I can't remember.
I can't remember exactly either, but, don't be discouraged. But with that
Yeah.
being said
Yeah. Um, and so I don't know, kind of just like thinking about like some goals going into the new year. Um, I think it's also like just really important to set like realistic goals.
Mhm,
Obviously everybody is like super ambitious and whatever in the beginning of the year, and like you just feel like so crappy about yourself like
mhm,
when you fall short. And so not to like, go into it like with like low expectations, but it's like but with grace and knowing that like you have a whole year,
mhm,
and God is not on a timeline like
mhm,
we are,
mhm,
because we're annoying and we like to like plan things and like take control and everything. But it's like one thing that your mom told me last year, probably, or like the beginning of this year, when I think I had shared with her like rooted, or I don't know, I shared something with her, and she reminded me of that. She was like, the Lord's not on like he's not in a rush, he's not on a
mhm,
timeline. And like don't get discouraged if in the next 6 months like you don't feel like, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but like if you don't feel like rooted or something like
mhm,
that, it's like you have your whole life
mhm,
to like practice and like
mhm,
get that, and there was just something about that conversation, obviously completely butchering the conversation, but like the point of it obviously like stuck with me, that it's just like it's fine, just
mhm,
like just set that like intention, that goal, that
mhm,
whatever, and then like pick yourself back up, give yourself grace like if you fall short, because the Lord is always giving you grace. And
mhm,
like yeah, and so there's that. So I feel like we set like some we like broke up our goals into what, like faith, like spiritual goals, marriage, financial, and personal goals.
Mhm.
And yeah. Um,
You wanna share a
what
goal?
a goal? Yeah.
Can be from any of the 4 categories,
Um,
which also while you're thinking, also highly recommend if you're married or single, I guess, but get with your spouse, your significant other, and set goals together.
yeah.
I think that that
Yeah.
is something that a
Yep.
lot of people set personal goals, and I think that
Yeah.
there's power in that, and I think that's a good thing. But I think for us, like aligning our goals together
Right.
and being able to cast visions together and being able to be
Mhm.
on the same page and to be able to run together into 2024
Yep.
is a big thing for us to stay on the same page and to be in alignment. And I think that that's so important. And I think that when we have similar goals and we can share in goals, or
Mhm.
I even just know your personal goals, like I can help to encourage you,
Yeah.
you can help to
Yeah.
encourage me, we can keep each other accountable.
Yep.
And I think it's very important for married couples to have goals that they're both striving towards
Yeah.
on a like unifying level, not on a just a personal level. Because
Yep.
everybody, has their physical, I want to get back in the gym, I want to lose some weight, but I think,
Yeah.
like,
Definitely not my goal.
well, maybe not everyone, but I think it is important to
Yeah.
have to set goals like with your husband or wife
Yeah.
and to be able to
Yeah.
go at the end of the year like we did today and be able to look back on
Mhm.
some of the goals that we set and see like, okay, like where did we fall short? What do we need to work on? What can we do better next year? How can we be more
Yeah.
intentional? What things do we need to prioritize more? Like what's distracting us from accomplishing these goals? And I think that's
Yeah.
just a healthy way to be able to stay on the same page. And that can go with your parenting, with your relationships, with
Yeah.
your dating life, with whatever it is that you want to set. But I would definitely encourage that.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Okay, so one, I feel like just like a personal goal. I don't even know. It's not even that great of a goal, but um I want to replace like 5 store-bought items with like things that I can make myself. Like it's not even coming from like a financial thing or
Like
whatever.
Play-Doh.
Yeah. Actually, exactly. Like
Wait,
Play-Doh.
yeah.
Yeah. Like like what I had in mind was like recently I've been making my own chicken broth.
Oh,
And like,
wow.
yeah. And I just like, I don't buy chicken broth anymore. And
Mm,
I'm like, that's really cool. Like, I want to start like replacing things of just like making them myself. I want to like, I don't know, be more like self-sustainable, I guess, in that way.
hmm.
And
That's a
so,
good one.
yeah, yeah, it is. No, so I don't know. I feel like there's that, but just like 5 different things. And I feel like it's like cool for like Ezra too to like
Mhm. It's fun it'd be fun for her.
yeah. And then so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll take up making sourdough. Probably not. I don't know if I want to go down that rabbit hole that everyone seems to go down once they start making
It's a slippery
sourdough.
slope,
It
man.
really is.
Crazy.
I know. You start making sourdough and then you start, what do you do next? I don't know.
Churning butter,
Yeah.
buying a ranch.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready for all that, but I know that would be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. So probably that. That's my um that's like just like a little personal goal. I feel like for a marriage goal. No, you'd share a personal goal first.
I would like I would like to cook more.
I would
That
like
also
that
implies
too.
that I would be cooking currently, but
So
I would like to cook, I should say.
period.
Yeah.
I would like you to cook too.
Yeah. I just I know I should do it. It's just one of those things where I've had like zero desire to even like learn. I don't know what it is, but like something about that just doesn't really fire me
I'm a
up.
really good cook.
That is true. You've spoiled me completely, and I'm forever grateful for everything that
No.
you do and every meal that you make. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I don't know, I just don't get super excited about like trying out new recipes. Like I'm down to eat whatever, but
I
and
feel like
so I think I just need to get into it a little bit,
yeah.
and I'm sure I will like start to like it, but I feel like because I don't do it, I have no confidence in it. And I also feel like I don't
But
trust
babe,
myself
you can
to
do all things through Christ who strengthens you.
amen, sister.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I would like to cook
Yeah.
more.
Okay, in your defense, I actually do like to cook, and so I cook a lot. And whenever you
And
do
sometimes
try
a
to
little
help me,
bit I try to help and then you don't let me. And then you take over and then I sneak out of the kitchen without you even realizing I left.
it's like you'll be doing something, and then I'd be like,
And then I hear you from the back going, oh, you're gonna do it like that? Oh, okay, that's mm. And then I have to be like this. How would you do it? And then
and you want to talk about something? Whatever. Anyways, I was
I
trying
would
to
like to
help you.
I
I
would
was
like to
saying
cook by
in
myself.
your
I
defense.
would like to cook by myself with some peace and quiet
Okay.
so that I can focus on the
Wow.
craft and art of cooking.
That's a good goal, babe.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyways, a marriage goal, um, to have date nights once a week.
Mhm.
Um, I think working together, it's really, really easy to justify like not having to have date nights or whatever
Mhm.
because it's like we're together a lot.
All the time.
And yeah, but there is a difference when you like prioritize time just to be together and not,
Like intentional time.
yeah, not
Not
working, not doing anything else, not like even having family time, like that's
mhm.
completely different. And so, yeah, like date nights once a week. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. I feel like
Mhm.
one of like my favorite date nights that we had recently was like just playing chess,
Mhm.
like dweebs.
You're the dweeb. I'm good at chess.
And we just like put a
Yeah.
blanket down, put some Christmas lights on the floor, made it all cute, played chess.
Yeah.
And that was so fun. And it's
Yeah.
like cost $0, makes like
Yeah.
nothing to put it together.
We didn't even have to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
And I think that's the nice thing about that is when like doing it once a week, I feel like for people that are working and busy
Right.
and with kids and stuff, it's like, oh, I don't have time for that. But I think that this year, like one of our goals is to prioritize that time and to take
Yeah.
turns, like whose responsibility it is to
Yeah.
plan out
Yeah.
that date. And so it not only puts us like it gets you thinking about like fun ways of making it creative.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be like we're going out to dinner, just us and getting
Yeah.
a babysitter. It's like,
Yeah.
well, after the kids go to bed, we have 45 minutes or whatever to
Yeah.
just like hang out or to play chess or to
Yeah.
like do something. And obviously, like, there's going to be the times when we actually get to do something out and go somewhere, like go get
Yeah.
coffee or go get dinner or whatever. But
Yeah.
especially when it is on a weekly basis, I think
Yeah.
it'd be fun to try to get creative of like
Yeah.
cheap ways and like
Mhm.
creative ways to have just like dates
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. That don't have all this pressure.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that that's good. I'm excited for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think one thing that we have been talking about too, like going into this next year, is not taking like old mindsets, old ways, old um like just like fears almost that we had
Yeah.
like this year into the next year
Yeah.
and not taking this year's like discouragements
Mm-hmm.
um into next year.
Yeah. Don't place 2023's failures onto 2024's plans.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like for like the things that we like tried to do like with art theory, like different product ideas or whatever, like they weren't like failures, but
Mhm,
they just didn't go the way that we thought they were going to go.
mhm,
And I feel like a lot of them, like, they were good ideas,
mhm,
and I just think that they were maybe done in a time that was, like, ahead of the Lord's
mhm.
timing, and it's like we
Yeah,
kind of tried to do things, like, on our own, maybe, like, our own strength, maybe our own knowledge, and it's kind of just, like, based on our own skills, and it's like they weren't bad, and I still feel like they were really good ideas, like,
mhm,
even, like, little things, like, even, like, merch or
mhm,
whatever. Um, I still feel like we're gonna, have that in some capacity,
Mhm.
but, like, and I do think that idea, like, did come from the Lord, but, like,
Yeah.
maybe not maybe not this year,
Yeah.
last year, whatever. Maybe not 2023. And
Mhm.
so it's like, don't take that mindset that it's like, oh, like merch didn't work or whatever it
Mhm.
is, and it be like, oh, we shouldn't do that in 2024. It's not going to work. It's
Yeah.
like, it just wasn't the time for it.
Yeah. And I think going back a little bit to episode 1, we kinda talked about we had this original idea to do this podcast last November,
Yeah.
and so I feel like God gave us
Oh,
that kinda
yeah.
hint that we were supposed to do that, and then we took, honestly, an entire year before we finally, like, said yes to that,
Don't
and
do that.
so don't do that.
Hmm.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
And
don't
so
do that.
just don't do that. And so that whole year of us trying to do things besides what we originally feel like God had called us
Yeah.
to, I feel like was us taking good seeds and trying to plant them on bad soil.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we were
Yep.
taking these ideas of going, God said podcast, but we want to make money, so let's do merch. God said podcast, but we want to make money, so let's do guides. God said
Hmm.
podcast, but we wanted, and so it was like
Yes.
this
Yep.
constant, like trying to, I don't want to say like outwit God, but it's like, well, God, can't we do both? Like, can't we make this money
Hmm.
first and then we'll do the podcast? And God
Hmm.
was like, but I already told you what to do. So why are you trying to come up with new ideas and new plans until you
Hmm.
see through the first goal
Yep.
that I gave you. And so I think, like you said, they weren't necessarily bad ideas, but I think God had an idea of the timeline of when those ideas can play themselves out. And
Hmm.
so now that we're stepping into this new season, this podcast season, not really knowing what the future is going to look like from a business standpoint of
Yeah.
Arc Theory, but trusting that because we're saying yes to this, that we're going to allow whatever doors God wants to open because of this
Hmm.
and be able to walk through them. And
Yeah.
so, like she said, like we're not going to be attaching the mindset of like, well, that didn't work then, so why would it work
Right.
now? And so
Yeah.
now it's like we're in a different season. We're
Hmm.
operating from a different perspective. We have new
Yeah.
insights, we have new goals, we have new ideas. We're more creative than we were back then. We're better today than we were yesterday. And so
Hmm.
now some of those ideas that maybe didn't work then, we're going to revisit, we're going to
Yeah.
align, recalibrate whatever they need to do, and then see if,
Hmm.
do we have a better piece about it? Do we feel like God is calling us maybe back to some of those things? And
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, taking that mindset of not throwing away potentially good ideas
Yeah.
because they didn't work and maybe
Yeah.
just trusting that maybe the timeline was just off.
Hmm.
Obviously, there was bad ideas. We had some things that we're not gonna bring back and some things,
Yeah.
but I just think, moving into 2024, I think the mindset being like, this is a fresh start, like the
Hmm.
past is in the past, and
Hmm.
none of those failures are gonna dictate where we're headed in the future. And
Yep.
if God wants to use merch or guides or something that we haven't even thought of yet,
Yeah.
that we want to be open to whatever that is.
Yeah. And do want to preface, you were saying, you were like, the Lord is saying, do the podcast. And we're like, no, we want to make money. I feel like that is obviously super true. But like, our theory is a business, you
Mhm,
know? And so it's like, it's not that we were like turning away from like what the Lord was like calling us to do.
mhm.
It's like we had that like pressure of like
Yeah,
we want to make money. We need to make money because
that is very true. We
we're
were
running
doing it
this
full
business.
time.
Yeah,
It was our
exactly.
only source of income, and
Yeah.
we had, I think, originally when we got the word for the podcast, we only had our daughter, but
Yeah.
then as the year
Yeah.
progressed, you were already pregnant, and
Yeah.
so it was kinda like, "Okay, like, God, we're not gonna step away from the one thing making us
Yeah.
money to
Yeah.
go do something that isn't gonna make us money,"
Yeah.
and so that is
That's
very true.
yeah, it wasn't like, oh, we just
It
want
wasn't
money.
strictly defiance, it was just
No,
kinda like
it's like, Lord,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, we were just in a very confused place of, like, how could you possibly call us away from making money
Yeah.
and be calling us to something that isn't gonna make money? That doesn't make sense, like, how are we gonna
Yeah.
pay our bills? How are we going to
Mhm.
continue living our life? How are we gonna afford to have another kid and provide for them? And,
Yeah.
all those things that everybody wrestles with when it comes to finances.
Yeah. Um, oh, that is part of one of the things that we were talking about where it's like, okay, but you're building a kingdom business. You're not just
Mhm.
building a regular business.
Right.
And in a regular business that are not based on like the Lord's principles of success and all of that is like, no, that does not make sense to
Mhm.
do the thing that's not going to be making you money. So
Mhm.
like it does not make financial sense to do the podcast, don't do the podcast.
Yeah.
But like that's the problem with like riding the fence between building a kingdom business versus a worldly business, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Um and so that's, I feel like, what we were hashing out and still are, but like a lot of this year, where
Mhm.
it's just like, well, what does that look like?
Mhm.
Like, how do you have this business, but like not be making like money decisions? And it's like, that's not what the Lord is concerned with.
Mhm.
The Lord is concerned with like the purpose and
Mhm.
like, and doing things that are going to create like glory for him, not like what's going to make you financially successful. Like maybe that's like a thing that comes
Mhm.
as like a little bonus or whatever, but that's never like the Lord's focus. Like how can he make you more rich, you know?
Mhm.
And so, I don't know. That's kind of just like whatever, a little background to kind of make a little bit more sense of like what you were talking about and
Mhm.
kind of like understand a little bit more about where we were at. But
Yeah.
yeah. So,
But I think, yeah, moving forward, I would say if you guys have any goals or things that you're going to be working towards for 2024, like leave a comment. We'd love to
yeah.
hear about like what it is that the words you're getting,
Mhm.
the goals you're setting,
Yeah.
and I think as, people that are on that same journey, like I love to hear what other people are aiming towards, and I love to be able to potentially steal your goals because sometimes people have like things that I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like I would love to
Yeah.
implement that in my life too. And so I think
Yeah.
just, leave it in the comment. We'd
Yeah.
love to be able to hear what you're doing, to be able to pray for you and
Yeah.
encourage you in that stepping
Yeah.
into those new seasons. If you're in a season where you're riding the fence of stepping into something that's scary or new
Mhm.
or leaving a job for something else or whatever the case may be. I think
Yeah.
that just to be an encouragement to you to pray about it, to trust that God's plan and maybe this is the confirmation you need to do it and
Yeah.
to trust that God's got your back no matter what and
Mhm.
it's probably not going to look like how you think it's going to look and it's going to
Mhm.
look backwards and
Mhm.
well-meaning people are going to try to question, your
Yeah.
decision-making ability, but
Yeah.
I think that when you're moving in alignment with what God has,
Mhm.
things are going to look different and we're learning to get used to that.
Yeah. But anyways, that is all. Um yeah, let us know if there's anything that you would like prayer for. You can comment below. You can always DM us on Instagram.
Mhm.
We'd love to chat with you. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch you for the next episode.
Love you.